Credit card mistakes to avoid. Did you know that nearly half of Americans have outstanding credit card debt? It's true, and all it takes are a few small mistakes to have a huge cloud of debt hanging over your head. We all make mistakes, and that's just part of life, but when you're making credit card mistakes, you can potentially hinder yourself with debt or bad credit for years to come. Instead of falling into those pitfalls and having to climb out of them, why don't we show you a few ways to avoid the credit card mistakes beginners can often get tricked by. Oh, and make sure to stick around until the end for one of the biggest blunders we constantly see. Don't carry a balance over from month to month. When surveyed about the issue, 22% of Americans believed that carrying a balance over from month to month would help them improve their credit score. This is actually not the case at all, though, and carrying a balance actually hurts your credit score and is something you should avoid doing whenever possible. In fact, the people with the best credit are actually those that put very little strain on their credit card. Being more frugal with your spending on the card, and only spending what you are able to pay off by the end of the month can help you boost your credit quickly. Don't apply for a whole bunch of credit cards. Credit card companies can be really pushy about their cards, and they make it seem like you should constantly be applying for new cards as soon as they come out. This is actually a really common trap that young people fall into, and also one that most people won't warn you about. When you apply for a whole bunch of credit cards, this may show up in your credit report. The result of this is that banks might be more wary of you, and believe that you are a risky client. This could make the offers you get worse, or you may get denied a credit card altogether in some cases. If you want to upgrade your card, go through your bank to do it. They can essentially swap out your old card for a new one, and you will save yourself the risk of being seen as a scammer by banks. Don't just make the minimum payment. If you have a bill for $60 and you have the option to only pay $10, you are making what is called a minimum payment. These aren't great to make, though, as they can actually cause your credit score to take a hit. The remaining money also comes with interest, which means you are going to have to pay even more down the line. If you simply have to make a minimum payment because you don't have the capital to do more, that's fine. But you shouldn't make a habit of it, and you should actually try and plan out your budget better to account for these kinds of expenses. Making a minimum payment can add months or even years to the time it takes to pay off your debt, and so it's recommended that you stay away from these kinds of offers whenever possible. Always pay attention to your billing statements. Credit card scammers can quickly push you into debt without you even knowing about it. The best way to avoid this kind of headache is just to stay on top of your billing statements, though, as these things can just sort of happen. The longer it goes, the worse it gets, though, and the harder it gets to prove that the actions taking place on your card aren't actually done by you. Thankfully, credit cards are a bit more secure than debit cards, but you should still pay close attention to make sure that nothing suspicious is going on with your card. If it is, immediately call your bank and let them know that something is wrong. Almost always they will be able to take care of things and right the ship before you inherit debt or payments, and so it isn't usually the worst thing in the world. Too often beginners don't check their billing statements and find out a month or two later that they were being scammed. Our next mistake is one that often costs people hundreds, if not thousands when they make it, and way too often beginners can get burned by it. But before we get to that, if you're enjoying the video so far, consider leaving a like and subscribing so you can get more videos like this. Avoid taking out cash advances. A cash advance is a really risky proposition, and one that is pretty stressful to take out. Essentially, you can get access to some cash earlier, but the interest starts building the second that the money touches your hands. There is usually also a cash advance fee that is around 5% that is taken out as well. Unless you really need to take out a cash advance for whatever reason, you should probably try everything else in your power to avoid getting pulled into this kind of situation. You are going to be costing yourself a whole lot of money in the long term with this sort of deal. Taking 0% APR offers. Getting a 0% interest credit card offer is amazing, and can really be handy. Unfortunately, it's also an easy way to get people to sign a contract, so a lot of companies will advertise it when that's not truly the offer. It's really important to read the fine print on these contracts, as oftentimes these credit card companies will only have a grace period of 0% APR, and then the real interest comes out. This can be really tough on people who thought they got a good deal but then find out they kind of get tricked. A good rule of thumb here is that if it feels like it's too good to be true, it probably is. Credit card companies all want you to buy their card, and the easiest way to do it is to get you interested enough to apply to one. That's when the real trouble starts, though, and you should never feel bad about rejecting a contract if you feel like it's got more strings attached than they originally told you about. Making impulse applications. If you are at an electronics store and they offer you a discount on the product if you apply to their credit card, then you probably shouldn't take them up on that deal. Saving 10 to 20% on a television or speaker isn't going to mean that much in the long run when the interest rates on these credit cards are usually incredibly high. These are predatory credit cards, and they can wreak havoc on your credit score if you let them. No matter how small of a deal they may try to pitch it to you, signing your name to a credit card is a big deal, and probably not one you should be making when all you wanted to do was buy something for cheaper. Don't exceed your credit limit. Exceeding your credit limit can ultimately hurt your credit score in a major way. Generally, you shouldn't be trying to get anywhere near your credit limit, as even approaching too close to it can have an impact on your score. Experts usually recommend that you never carry a balance of more than 30% of your credit limit. That means that if your credit limit is $1,000, you shouldn't spend more than $300. If you can follow that rule, you won't ever have to worry about sneaky shots at your credit score. This is another great reason for you to really pay attention to the contract that you sign, as you can easily get fooled into thinking you can spend the money when in reality you can't. One of the hardest parts of really learning about credit cards is that even the money you do have isn't always allowed to leave your account all at once. This is a weird rule for sure, but if you don't follow it you are constantly going to get dinged up on your credit score, which you really don't want to do. Only buy what you can afford. Mostly because of their constant marketing campaigns, beginners can often feel like their credit card is a bottomless source of cash and opportunities. Unfortunately, if you want to be responsible, the credit card is a lot more like a debit card. You should only buy what you are able to afford, and should avoid items out of your budget like the plague. If you go out and buy something out of your price range, the remaining money charged to the card will have interest attached to it. By the time you pay that off, you probably could have saved up for it yourself. It may seem like a credit card allows you to be looser with your money, but it's actually the opposite. Think of every purchase as a loan that you have to pay back as soon as possible, because there's no way out of paying what you owe. And that about wraps up some of the biggest credit card mistakes that beginners too often make. Do you prefer to use your credit card or do you mostly use a debit card? Let us know in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed this video and felt you learned something, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos.